Okay, everyone.
20 years as me and my mates were out there. I've got a feeling that it's going to be even more difficult this time.
Shushing leads. Thank you to everyone for coming to Show and Tell 39 for NHS.UK. And to those in our Leeds team who you can't see but I can see on there, they were doing the second half today. We're doing the first half. And to our guest speaker who will be speaking later on from the Helix Centre. Oh, all right, thank God. Quickly, our team. I've mashed it all into one page now. There's some familiar faces here for those of you in the team. If you're external to the team and want to know who any of these people are, just grab one of these at the end, two sides, everyone's names and job titles. You might be a designer, want to meet a designer, or be delivery manager, etc. Please come and ask us questions at the end. For London, our sprint goals. We want us to finish our user needs analysis, which is done. It's on that wall behind you there if you want to have a look at it. All written up. We'll talk about later. A team sketching in advance of labs. This has been done more than once. It's been finished and then redone, then finished and then redone because our labs have changed a few times. So thank you to the hard work of the people doing that. We completed the blog move. It is now at where, Dom?
Transformation.blog.nhs.uk.
Excellent. And I think it's all finished, maybe. Verba, our publishing tools that Mark has been working on, took another iteration with some work with our user research with our content team. And we published Fungal Nail Infected in Frutiger in public beta, which is a stretch goal. So that is live. We haven't been tweeting about it because we want natural traffic only. We don't want our friends who are designers basically telling us how wonderful our designs are. It makes us feel good about them things, but doesn't help with our feedback. And a news update. I'm not Emily, but I'm doing it today. One slide. We have two blogs out. Tim's not here, but I will tell him in his absence his blog was excellent because he's not here. I had a blog from Rachel about we're hiring, which if you haven't heard, we're hiring. So if you do have friends or good people, get the email sent in to that post. Add that, Rachel, in the hiring piece?
No, nothing to add really. Just don't be shy. We are absolutely hiring, so get any useful contacts over.
Brilliant. First up today we have Martin and Gemma, who are our user research team. We'll be talking us quickly through discovery findings.
It's up and down, isn't it?
It is up and down.
Hello everyone, I'm Martin, this is Gemma. As you know, we were in the lab with 11 people, it's 2 weeks ago, and in the week since then we've done 5 of the 6 in-home interviews, which has been fascinating, not just to see the knickknacks that people have, but to have their, see the family relationships and the kind of support that goes into that. And as you know, it's hernia repair and the anti-hip replacement surgeries. That is a big document. I've dropped a link into Slack. It's lovely and wonderful. It even has a summary in the first 2 pages. So everything that's on that wall of stickies in scribbly handwriting is now organised in lovely prose for you to read. So here are 6 things that we learned. No, that's what you need to search for to find it. 6 things we learned. Again, as before, as with diabetes and as with the symptoms work, there's a lot of procrastination and denial of symptoms that goes on before some kind of a trigger sends people to seeking help. And that confirms a load of needs that we already have, but seems worth reiterating. Getting people into help, into care is an issue.
So we found that the journey to eventual treatment was sometimes quite complicated. That was on many different levels. So from the different routes to treatment that people made, so sometimes by the GP, sometimes via A&E or 111. There was also things like a chap I interviewed last week who needed a hip replacement. You had to lose weight, so he was given a target BMI before he was allowed to have his hip replacement. So his journey to treatment was kind of via Weight Watchers and was pretty long for that reason. We also found that attitudes to online information was sometimes slightly guarded, sometimes people were untrusting. people were wanting signposting from their healthcare professionals, but on the whole, were not getting it. So where healthcare professionals were signposting patients, they were very receptive. They found the information that they were given useful, but it didn't happen very often, and so people were worried about seeking out information online independently.
When you get to meet the consultant, there's a sense of, finally, a sense of relief, the feeling that now something is going to be done, and yet it's stressful. Lots of people told us it was difficult to ask the consultant the questions they really needed to ask. It was the stress, and although it's longer than the GP meeting, it's probably 20 minutes or maybe a bit longer, there's still a lot of new information in a short time. And that's given us, again, a whole bundle of needs about what people need to understand and need to learn to go off on their own self-directed research and to move forward into their care confidently. Something that did seem really successful was all the moments in our interviews with people where they said, my expectations had been set in advance at a joint clinic with a leaflet, with something that would tell me where I'm going when, to give me the map of what my care is going to be, who I'm going to meet in what order, where I need to go. And I think our best example is in terms of discharge criteria, in terms of the flight of stairs you would have to climb in order to be able to go home. And I think twice that came up with joint replacement because I really clearly understood what I needed to do to get out of that hospital and to get home. And having had that set in advance, weeks in advance, those expectations really motivated people in recovery. And we hope that's a pattern we can replicate in lots of moments of care.
And finally, I think one of the overriding things that we found was that people were generally really happy that their surgery had improved their lives, and this was particularly the case for the joint replacement people we spoke to. There's a lot of kind of anxiety about going forward into and having joint replacement surgery, and in terms of what people would say to any other kind of friends or relatives who were likely to be having this kind of procedure, it was very much just go for it. Don't wait. Go and seek help and get treatment.
And that's it. We're in the lab tomorrow. Come and see us if you don't have an invite. 7 sessions, first one's at 9:30. We're at System Concepts off the Strand. And we can go to their drinks afterwards.
Thank you, Martin. Please do get in touch with Martin if you want to go tomorrow and come and see what a lab means. Talk about it all the time. Some people don't know what that means. Come and have a look. Watch people try our prototypes out. Up next, we have Henrik, who is our content designer. Normally partnered with Kimberly, who is off this week.
One of the outputs from the research was a bunch of new user needs. And I'm going to talk quickly through how we arrived at the new needs that we found. So the first thing we usually do is we build a user experience wall, which is this sort of board thing with lots of stickies behind you. That means we create the patient's journey in their own words from the transcripts that we wrote in the research sessions. So we've got a load of stickies after the sessions. We throw a lot away because we've got a lot of duplicates, and we've got a lot of rather quotes that are not quotes but more sort of interpretations of what people think they saw. And then we order them into information clusters along the patient's journey. So they go to the GP and they have a load of questions. They don't understand what the GP tells them. They are panicky, they are anxious. All these things are information clusters. And then we kind of take a step back and we translate what people told us into user needs, because they don't say, I want something that helps me keep track of my appointments, for example. They say, I had all these things to go through all of a sudden once I got the hospital appointment booked, and I didn't know when the next thing was, and forgot things, and I didn't know how to prepare for appointments. So we translate what they told us into user needs, we stick them on top of the wall there, and this is sort of very much of a team effort. So the researchers and Sam, our clinician, and the content designers and developers, everybody kind of works together on this. And we also brought in the desk research that we did prior to the lab research, which was to look at patient brochures that hospitals put out to prepare people for surgery. So these are kind of the clinicians' needs, so to speak. The nurses and the doctors want people to prepare in a certain way. So we drew all that information in as well. And we identified 23 user needs. Like Martin said before, some of the needs were already covered from other conditions that we looked into before. And the needs kind of follow the patient journey. So at each stage, they have particular needs. So when they go and see the surgeon for the first time, they have certain questions, and the surgeon needs to tell them certain things. Then to prepare in the days before the operation, they need to do certain things. And then we went and prioritized the user needs. Prioritizing in this context means which ones are the ones that we need to cover first, which ones are the ones that are absolutely necessary to get you to surgery. Because once you step into the hospital, you're kind of being handheld by a nurse and then handed over to the doctor. So digital kind of isn't as important anymore, while in the run-up to surgery, it's much more important. So we laid them out on the floor, and there was a lot of toing and froing and people moving cards about. And then we created that little wall behind you where they are in order of priority. And here are some of the needs. So I need to know what the operation involves. People want to know what's going to happen to them. Not in great detail. They do not want to see the gory YouTube videos where the hip is sort of yanked out and something is put in too much, but they want to have a good idea what's going to happen to them. I need to decide whether to have an operation. So there's different decision points in the journey. The first and most important one for when you go and see the surgeon, and they explain to you what's going to happen and what the best way is, and together you kind of make the decision. I need to choose from a range of hospitals when I make the appointment. Lots of people did not know they could choose. And then I need to know what's going to happen from the day I get my date for the surgery to the time I go home. And this is about people felt they didn't have transparency of the process. So once they were thrown into this black hole that is the NHS, they were just kind of stumbling around and didn't really know what the sequence of events was. And then I need to know what to do and not to do when I go home after surgery. So especially with hip replacement, that recovery phase is very important. So next, we created some prototypes that we're taking into the lab tomorrow, and Matt, who's sitting there like it's not concerning him, is going to talk how we got to the prototypes and what we did in terms of sketching.
Up and down.
Up and down. Just like you are as well.
Hi, yes, I'm Matt. I'm one of the designers on the team, along with Tim, who's not here, he's managed to go on holiday. I'm just going to take us through some of the sketching work that follows on almost directly from Henrik's user needs presentation. So we have the rule of user needs, prioritise user needs. from there, when we start prototyping, basically what we do is we will pluck out some of the user needs for an exercise. So here's a good one. I need to know where I'm going, who I'll see when I have an appointment, so I can find the right place. And also, as you can see, things are quite fluid, so we're always like editing and updating user needs when we feel appropriate. So the whole team basically does like a sketching exercise, so it's not just designers, it's basically everybody from clinician to developer to designer to delivery manager, everybody. So we pick some user needs to sketch around. We also make some things called micro personas. So this is one example of a micro persona. So if anyone's familiar with the idea of characters or personas for design, these are those personas, but they're about this big. And it's just enough to help you sketch without sketching your own experience. So you're deliberately trying to sketch from somebody else's experience so that you get to take a step back, as it were. Then we sketch some stuff. As you can see, you don't have to be Michelangelo to do it. It's mainly about the whole team getting their ideas down. Then what we do is basically we present to each other and we look for themes or ideas that hold, or like things that we can pluck out that feel strong that we can carry on with. In the last sketching session, 2 themes kind of came out of it. And this is in relation to kind of like either day surgery or things like joint replacement, so kind of short in and out type stuff. One thing was the idea of not text-based appointment booking, but text as a medium to see how effective or not that might be. And other ideas around timelines and roadmaps, so literally understanding your journey as a patient, like where you might be, what you've got to do until you get to the end. So then we quickly switch over to like Illustrator or Sketch or something, just to start banging things out digitally. Again, it's a team exercise, so there's another wall here where if someone like me starts banging things out in Illustrator, obviously I'm working with someone like Henrik to get the content right, but then every round we're printing it out, sticking it on the wall, it's getting covered in stickies. Everything goes, like as a team, we keep going through prototypes, so it doesn't go into that rarefied, like, I'm an illustrator now doing magic, and like drop shadows all clear everywhere. But, so again, they get printed out much like the sketches, and we just pile them up so you can actually kind of see the history of things. So, for example, this one starts like this, and then you just get this big, like, work harder. And so it starts to work a bit harder as we go forwards. And that's kind of the idea of being able to iterate these things really, really quickly. Vector programs like Illustrator are actually really good for this kind of just quick shifting stuff around with. So while it might look quite high fidelity, at the moment it's still very low fidelity. There isn't any kind of over-engineered typographic rules or anything like that going on. It's all just kind of slammed together. Oh yeah, right, okay. This went really well last week, so we'll try for another one. So basically what we're going to try and do in the lab tomorrow is those are all just kind of Illustrator files, essentially exported as PNGs, but an easy way to get things in front of people is the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, that's good. Oh, no worry. So basically what we're going to do is, as a way to kind of help suspend disbelief, these things might be presented on an iPad or literally on a browser, but the images are essentially just plugged into a web page, and as sort of daft as that sounds, that's one way to make something feel like this little bit more real to someone. We'll do things like get reaction from going from a kind of page that says something to a new referral service and see what the jump is like. It's like I walked into a gambling site. So again, that's one kind of example of one of these kind of prototypes after it's been through sort of, I don't know, 6 or so revisions. It's just a picture, but essentially we've got some kind of fake links that work. And again, the same with the kind of day surgery guide. And if I remember to explain some of this stuff, which I didn't, a lot of these prototypes are to do with the idea of where I am at a given point. So the idea of like a day surgery guide is there's always things you're going to be asked. Like, so you're going to go into day surgery and you're going to be asked like, okay, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Do you have any allergies? And it sounds stupid, but like either having it on an iPad or even a lanyard or a piece of printed thing means you don't necessarily have to think, or someone can look at it for you if you're stressed out. The idea of this one is it presents to you exactly what's going to happen to you on the day, like where you've got to get to, what's going to happen, when you're going to leave. So you're not kind of faced with this idea of like, right, I'm going to go to hospital, and then there's going to kind of be this sort of blurry, stressful time, and then I'm going to come out of hospital again. So we try and do things like the idea of like, okay, if I want to get to hospital, I know how to get to the hospital itself, but which bit of the hospital do I need to get to? Things like that. So, you know, like go in the obscure door around the back into the day surgery unit, follow the blue line, this kind of stuff. And then the idea of like what's actually going to happen to you during this day. So at a very kind of micro level in terms of your whole timeline. So, you know, what's going to happen when you get there before your operation? Then you're going to have your anaesthetic. Then you're going to have after your operation, something's going to happen. But it's literally just setting that down in a way that is really kind of simple, possibly reassuring, but at least, I mean, reassuring might not be the right word because you've obviously got stress, but you've at least got this knowledge of the steps that you're going to go through in a day rather than it kind of being a black box. And then basically end of it, like going home. Like, how do I get home? Interesting things around public transport. Obviously, a lot of hospitals encourage you to use public transport as much as possible, but then if you're coming out of day surgery, don't use public transport. So things like that, just plucking out these kind of small but important bits of information. And I mean, that's kind of it. That's basically what we're going to take in. But that's like a first round kind of best punt at something, and then we'll put it in front of users and they'll tell us why it's rubbish, and then we'll just keep it around from there and keep putting it back in front of them. Benji, how do I get back there? Screen is already in it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. So yeah. So basically, those were prototypes based on like day surgery or hernia. Today, quickly, we're going to repurpose them into, I think, joint replacement prototypes, and then we're going to take them to the lab tomorrow to meet with people who've been through a joint replacement surgery. And then it's the blog move with Dom.
Before Matt moves off, he's put an extra effort in this sprint. I said a lot of weight. Tim's been away. We kept changing those prototypes repeatedly. And poor Matt has been just taking on more and more and more. And he's sticking behind you here. They're having on Matt's, but quite a few. So thank you, Matt.
Hello, I'm Dom, one of the developers on the team. So part of this sprint, we had to move the block. One of the reasons for that is, as most of you will know, NHS.UK, Health and Social Care Information Centre. It became NHS Digital, slightly easier mouthful, which meant that our existing blog has been moved to transformation.blog.nhs.uk. Here it is, new home, new URL. That happened last Monday. At the same time, NHS.UK put their new corporate site live. A couple of things we needed to do was update some configuration on our server, change the theme, and make sure any references to the existing URL were changed in the content. So where it might have referenced images or links to other blog posts. What we were relying on others to do was to update the domain name system, which is it allows like more friendly URLs to be pointed out where that application actually lives. And we had to update almost 300 pieces of existing content, about 24 pages of existing blog posts and 53 sets of media, so mainly images. The reason for doing that is what we don't want to happen is somebody who clicks on a link in a Twitter post or who's bookmarked one of the previous blog posts, sends it round again, they just get a page which says cannot be found on the site. So we need to make sure that we set a 301 redirect which tells it it's been permanently moved. So yeah, reasons why. So mainly because the move from NHS Digital to take that domain name, and the reason we chose blog.nhs.uk, taking the idea a little bit from GDS, is it gives us quite a good naming convention for future blogs as the team grows, and we have more sort of domains where we want to talk about things, so maybe accessibility or design. We can sort of create those extra blogs and create more specific content. So what we learned is try and have those redirects in place before you switch over the domain. So a few of them were missing, which meant some of our traffic might have been a bit lost. I just updated that and realised that this is the one from when you first loaded it. But I did have a link to it as well, to say go and check it out, transformation.blog.nhs.uk. Next up, Mark.
I am Marco, developer. I'm working on Verbo, our publishing tool. That is actually we just started work on. So just to give you a context, so our problem is that content designers need to manage content. At the moment, we have a few pages on beta NHS.UK. There are HTML pages, so if they need to edit some pages, they have to come to us with the changes they have to make. We have to make the changes, publish, push to GitHub, deploy, and it doesn't scale. And we plan to publish many more pages over the next weeks and months. So this is our main problem. We need to build something for content designers. The problem we don't have is we don't want to solve problems we don't have yet. Meaning that we don't want to build something that is too big we can't manage because of resources, time, and so on. And also we don't want to use something that forces us to work in a particular way. We want to understand what we actually need, how we want to work. So at the moment, everything is in GitHub. GitHub is really good for developers, but it's not good for content designers because it's made for developers. So all the words, all the workflow is brilliant, but it's brilliant for developers, not for content designers. So we started to build Verba. Verba is a publishing tool for content designers. It's just like a thing that we are building to see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll learn something and we'll start building something else. The idea is to learn fast and without focusing too much on one thing and without spending too much money and resources, so that we are happy to just move to something else without having spent too much money and in the meantime learning things. Verba is based on GitHub because GitHub works for us and in theory works for many other, for content designers as well, but the interface is very different, just built for developers, not content designers. So last sprint we built a proof of concept to see if Verba could work for us, and yes, it could. For us is good enough because it allows people to edit pages, to publish for review, and these kind of things. This sprint we started working on our workflow because we understood that the idea works, but the original idea was too simple. It's not just a matter of editing pages and just approving pages. We actually understood that we needed a workflow, and actually workflow already existed. And at the moment, the content designers actually are using Google Docs, which doesn't scale and doesn't work. So we try to understand, Eric and I trying to understand what will be our initial workflow. And as you can see, it's quite similar to the Gov.UK one. We started with something a bit more complicated, but then we realized it actually this was what we actually needed. So some documents start in this is a state machine. So the documents start in a draft state, and then a writer makes some changes. When they are happy, they submit for a second eye. A second writer takes a look. If they are not happy, they send the documents back. Otherwise, they publish the changes, and developer takes an extra look to see if the changes look nice, or there are some design changes to make, and if they're happy as well, the changes get published. So this is simple and easy to understand. That's what we like. So we started to sketch something like how the thing could look like. This is just these are wireframes. I'm not like they look terrible because I'm not a designer. But just to give you an idea, so a writer logs in and starts a new revision, giving a title like to create new pages. They get here where they actually can see all the pages, edit the pages, start new pages, and when they're happy, they save those pages. They can work for weeks or days. We don't really mind. At the end, they see the changes before submitting the revision for a second eye. You can see at the top right. When that happens, they write something like, please take a look at these changes, see what you think. A second writer, the revision gets assigned to a second writer. They log in and click on the revision. They see the changes made by the first writer. They make some comments saying like, this is not right, doesn't look right, you probably had to change it, blah, blah, blah. And they publish the revision, or they send back to the writer. Easy to understand, I think it's simple, and that's what we like again. And we're planning to build this like probably a prototype or maybe as a stable version to see if it works. Because if we don't start using it, we won't understand if this is the right thing for us for now. Next.
So one of our stretch goals this week was to publish a page on fungal nail infection. So I thought I'd put those pictures up in case anyone had missed them. They're there. So why publish this page? Well, we're publishing a lot of the pages that we've done so that we can link to them and test them from the Choices site. So if you go on the existing page for fungal nail infection, you'll be given a banner, ask if you want to see a new version of the page, and ask if you want to leave some feedback. So why this page as well? Well, the other pages that we've put out so far, stomachache and headache, have some, stomachache and rashes in babies and children have different calls to action. They have a red box around why you might need to go and see, might need to go to A&E or call 999. They also ask if you want to see a GP. So the focus of this page is a lot more on what you could do at home. It's not such a serious condition. So again, it's a chance for us to test and see a different format. How do people adapt to that? What do people think of it? That's pretty much it. We're starting to get feedback on it. It's going into our feedback form. We're rating it, seeing what the tone of feedback is, the type of feedback, and the issue. And we'll just continue to iterate the pages based on that. Thanks.